Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I would love to be the filling in a Geena Davis, Susan Sarandon sandwich.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Thelma and Louise, which released in 1991. Written by Callie Kahuri and directed by Ridley Scott. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Thelma and Louise, played by Geena Davis and Susan Sarandon. They are heading off for a fishing weekend for just girls. But along the way, they're going to end up in a bunch of situations that'll generally get worse and worse until the two of them are faced with a decision to deal with all of the consequences.
So apparently the script for this was written somewhere in the very late 70s, like 1979
Wow.
into the early 80s, and then kind of floated around for quite some time. Apparently Hollywood looked at the script, and apparently, according to Ridley Scott, the script was being referred to two bitches in a car. And no one really wanted to make this movie. And it floated around for a while. Ridley Scott eventually purchased the script because he thought that this was a really great project. And he shopped it around to all the other directors that he thought would be interested in making this because he didn't really want to make it himself.
Okay.
And every other director that he approached turned it down until Michelle Pfeiffer turned to Ridley Scott and went, "Why don't you just direct it?" And so he did. And so I just think it's weird that this was almost a film that just never got made, considering how sort of highly praised and well received it was when it released. That it almost never was. Now, when Callie Kahuri wrote the script, when it wasn't being picked up, she was actually intending on just making the film herself. She wrote it, she might as well direct it. And she was going to try to make this as a sort of super low budget docu-style road trip film. But then, of course, once Ridley had purchased the script from her, well, at least Ridley said he still had a collaborative relationship with her with all of the actors, actresses, and crew that worked on the film to make it a collaborative process throughout. And I just think from the first time I saw this film until now, it's remained one of those films that's just stayed, in my heart.
Yeah. I mean, this is like the second time I've seen it in my 40-odd years. Like, when it first came out in 1991, obviously it fucking blew box offices away. Everybody was talking about it, I think I remember my mum even, highlighting the movie saying, "You gotta watch this to understand what women are talking about." And I was just like, "Well, Mum, I'm 8 years old." But then a few years later, it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch Thelma and Louise. And I honestly don't remember how I felt about it when I first watched it. I must have been still knee deep in action movies, and I was just like not paying attention. But then getting it ready for the review, like, first thing that shocked me, I forgot that it was like fucking 2 hours long.
Right.
Like I'm not against long movies, okay? It's just in my old age, any movie that goes past an hour and a half, I'm like, man, I need 2 days, to really kind of take in what you're seeing, what you're watching. There's a lot of layers to take in a 2-hour movie, especially deep layered movies. And with this one, I mean, Susan Sarandon, Geena Davis. I mean, I don't exactly know what you want from me in this review. I'm probably going to spend the next 30 minutes just thinking about them.
Oh, well, you think about them for a moment. I just want to talk about the music, because that's one of the first things that you get in this film, and we see Hans Zimmer. I was like, geez, yeah, Hans Zimmer was actually doing music for movies like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely marvelous soundtrack here, and Ridley Scott was enjoying his work on the film so much that he created this entire opening for Hans Zimmer, where we can just layer in his music right at the start. Where we get this camera panning up to this gorgeous cinematic mountain vista as Hans Zimmer's score's playing. I'm like, oh, I'm in movie. I'm already in.
Yeah.
So like tonally, it sets the mood, the lighting, the cinematography, everything. I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is really great. And the film really wastes no time establishing who Thelma is and who Louise is.
Yeah.
We see Thelma in her home life with her marriage, and things seem awkward, and she definitely seems like the beaten housewife without the actual beating physically, but mentally kind of held back by her husband, who seems to be angry, especially when he falls over when he goes to get into his car, which was unscripted, by the way, but Ridley Scott thought it was so hilarious it's staying in the film.
It felt like that watching him fall into his car. I was just like, that looked so out of place, and he's just shouting at the guy in the road.
The extras there are like, this wasn't scripted, what do I do?
What do we do? We're just going to stand here. I mean, Shooter McGavin. I mean, that's not really his name, but he's Shooter McGavin from fucking, that Adam Sandler movie. Christopher McDonald. I mean, he's a fabulous actor. And yeah, okay, I get, I mean, Gary and I were talking about this, how we perceived the movie before we turned the camera on. And I can see from the start the way he does kind of treat Thelma, the way he talks to her, that she's, the held back housewife who's just trying to, she's trying, what's it she say to him? What do you want for tea tonight? What do you want for dinner? And he's just like, God damn it, Thelma, I don't care what we're going to have for dinner tonight. I'm not even going to be here to eat it. I'm probably going to be late. And so immediately, it's implied that he's working late and she's really suspicious of him. But you never find out really if he is doing anything nefarious or if he is just working late and he does come home tired and he does just want her to do all of the house cleaning and stuff like that. Because, well, people, it's 1991, the wife stays at home and does all the work and the man goes to work to earn the bread. Now, it's not that. That's not the case nowadays, but, back then it was kind of implied. But, yeah, he gets out, he gets in his car, he drives off, and then Louise calls, and Susan Sarandon, she's the waitress, she's working all these hours, and, she calls up Thelma, and she's just like, we're going. Are you coming? And Thelma's just like, yeah. Fuck it.
Cue packing the suitcase montage. I love the moment where Louise turns up to pick up Thelma and she's coming out with all these suitcases. Everything. She's making a return trip. She's like, I'm packing everything for just in case. She's like, why do you need that lantern for?
Like, has Thelma even ever been on holiday?
She's got no life, so no, she has no idea what she's getting herself in for. I mean, neither of them do, actually.
Yeah, that's it. But that's the thing as well. Like we know that Thelma doesn't have much of a life, but we don't understand. Well, I personally, I didn't understand what the history was.
Well, we got a glimpse of it with her, relationship with her husband. Yeah. That was all the film was giving you to just establish these characters early on, so you can make your own assumptions or figure out roughly what's going on.
This was it. I was trying to work out, why don't they have children? Whose choice is it to not have children? Is one of them.
It was the dad. It was Daryl. Daryl says, Thelma says to Louise that Daryl says he still feels like a big child himself, so therefore doesn't feel ready to have children yet, right. Which is just his way of just shirking any kind of extra responsibility or commitment to Thelma, because maybe he doesn't really love her, but keeps her around because that's just the way things have been since they were children.
I know, that's it. For me, there's like her saying that to Louise. I'm like, okay, so the husband is a bad guy, but there's also certain aspects where I'm like, you could have just gotten out at this point. You could have gotten out of this relationship a lot longer. You've stayed in this relationship. Why? What is it that your husband is bringing back to the home? Maybe it's the money. Maybe it's the
familiarity. It's the safety.
Yeah,
the fact that,
she says at one point that they've been together since they were 14. So maybe she was afraid to go off and get into another relationship. The movie doesn't really delve into that, and you don't need it, but
but it tells you enough about who they are very quickly.
Yeah, but there's certain character background that I'm just like, I could have done with a little bit more, but we don't need it. In an already
2-hour plus movie.
I know, I wanted more. But the two of them get together. I mean, we have the iconic Polaroid shot of the two of them smiling. I really wish somebody had kept that Polaroid. Right. I reckon that Polaroid would be worth a lot of money now. To be like, this is the actual Polaroid from Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. So the two of them get in a car and they go driving off, and they're heading to this cabin. And Louise says, look, we've got to drive for quite a while to get there. And Thelma's just like, well, can we just stop somewhere? Let's stop at this bar. Let's have drinks. I mean, I don't know what the law was back in 1991 when driving, but if Louise is going to knock back a couple of fucking margaritas and then get in a car and drive at night, you're risking shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you've got Thelma, who immediately has just sat down and she's knocking back shots of whiskey and things like that and beers. She's telling Louise, like, I want to let my hair down. I want to have fun. You promise me fun. And this is when we're introduced to Harlan, played by Timothy Corhart, who, he's a bad guy. He is a fucking bad guy. And there's little things you notice where he's he's insistent to be standing there. He's he's buying them drinks. He's
beckoning them to the dance floor.
That's it.
He deliberately spins Thelma around a bunch to get her disorientated, and then takes her outside to the car park, and then proceeds to try and rape her. Now he tries the friendly approach first, but when Thelma's resisting him, he gets physical with her and slaps her around, beats her down, and literally is about to rape her. And even when Louise turns up and tells him to stop, he's like, "Nah, I'm going to carry on."
Yeah.
Until the gun is pressed to the back of his head.
Yeah.
And then he backs down. However, he still continues with his vulgarity. And even though Thelma and Louise have backed away...
Yeah. Which for me was shocking. Because, I honestly thought it was a case of walk up, bad guy, bang, this is now the catalyst for the rest of the movie. The two of them actually walk. Thelma actually says, "Louise, let's go." And she starts to walk away. But it's Harlan who says some vulgar things, tells her to suck his dick. And that's when Louise just turns and goes, blam, and shoots him dead.
I should have gone ahead and fucked her.
What did you say?
I said, suck my cock.
Yeah, just executed him. And we don't fully understand why just yet, but there seems to be an implication a bit later on when Louise decides, here's the map. We need to get here, but to get there, we need to go through Texas. And I'm telling you, navigate me all the way around Texas to get where we're going.
Yeah.
And we don't quite know what happened to Louise in Texas. However, the film is implying, based on what we've just witnessed as well with the attempted rape, that Louise was probably raped in Texas at some point in her life.
Yeah.
And has never really gotten past the trauma of it all. And a point of rage is why she's killed this, attempted rapist now as well.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, for me, there's just certain character background story stuff that I think could have been utilised in the story to make you feel a bit more of a connection to Thelma and Louise. But it's not in the movie, and so my mind just starts over-ticking, like the whole Louise thing. When did you leave Texas? Who raped you? What age were you? How long have you been living with this trauma? Because now you have used the rage that you've been holding on to all this time to allow you to shoot this man dead. Did Louise always want to kill somebody? And she was just waiting for the opportunity, or it just happened to be this one moment that made her go,
I'd say definitely not.
Fuck you! I'm gonna shoot you. Because
in the heat of the moment, yes, but considering the rest of the following half an hour is Louise dealing with the aftermath of that. The fact that she's in utter shock that she even did it. That she keeps saying to Thelma, like, "Look, we need to pull over. I need to get coffee. I need to get my head straight," because she's just can't think. She's just dealing with the fact of what she's just done. And so the panic sets in, and now the two of them are on the run.
Yeah. And Thelma even says to her at one point, like, "We should go to the police. We need to tell them what happened, blah, blah, blah." And Louise is just like, "Nope, they're not going to believe us. They're going to understand that you were dancing with him, that you were drinking, that maybe you lured him on, and then it's..." And in a way, that's kind of Louise's kind of anxiety, her paranoia, creating this situation to make Thelma agree, okay, yes, we won't go to the police. What do you want to do? And so that's then the rest of the movie is the two of them just driving towards Mexico as fast as they can, avoiding Texas, which takes up quite a bit.
Yeah.
The fucking Mexican border.
And then we get introduced to Harvey Keitel, who plays Hal, who is a detective or a police officer.
Yeah.
And he's an agent, and he is trying to figure out what in the world happened here. And he's interrogating or questioning the waitress at the bar, and she's just like, "Nah, it wouldn't have been those two girls. Like, they wouldn't have shot anybody. But the guy that got killed, like, he had it coming. Like, he's been doing all sorts of horrible things, and so it's no surprise that he got killed. But those two definitely wasn't them."
Yeah.
And so that sets Hal off to he's still trying to figure out what happened, but at least he is now already been set the seed that the two that he's now looking for might actually be the victims in this.
Yeah. Like, they didn't intentionally murder this guy for nothing.
Yeah.
He was doing something and they were defending themselves. But that's the thing. Like, we were talking about this before turning the camera on. It's like, you get behind the idea that Thelma and Louise are on the run, but people are actually wanting them to come in so that they can just talk about their situation and to keep them safe. But Thelma and Louise just keep making more and more problems for themselves as they go, that it ultimately, snowballs or avalanches or builds up or whatever you want it to the point where there is no escape. And I sat there a couple of times going, girls, no, don't, no, what, Jesus Christ. Like the two of them know that they can't go home, and the police have already contacted Shooter McGavin, Christopher McDonald, and so they're waiting for the girls to call. And so as soon as Thelma calls and he's like, hey, Thelma, how you doing? She immediately hangs the phone up going, he knows.
It was a great moment.
It was a great moment.
Because he turns to the other police like, oh, that was hello.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but compare that to the last time you answered the phone to her. It's like, no wonder she knew something was up, because you're not nice to her normally.
Normally, yeah. And it's like Louise calls back and she bypasses the husband and says, look, just put the police on. And she starts speaking to Harvey Keitel's character. And we'd already had that moment where he'd gone to her apartment, hadn't he? Good old 1991. You could use like a plastic card to break past somebody's lock, Just break in anyhow. And he walks around and she's got a really tidy apartment. I mean, she doesn't seem to live with anybody. She doesn't have any children, no pets. She's just, she keeps herself to herself. And it's when he kind of holds her... picture, like
a birthday picture,
of Louise when she was young, that he starts to look into her history and he starts to get an understanding of what her past is like. And yet the film actually doesn't tell you that, which I feel like it missed the mark. But like I said, 2 hours long. Did you really need any more? You just needed the story to keep going.
I don't think the film needed to be as blunt as that, as to tell you all the details. I think it needed to just sprinkle in a few little things for your mind to wonder and race to think about, to put those things together. So, I think the film's quite smart. So I quite liked that. I really did.
Yeah. But as they're driving along, they come across a really good-looking face by the side of the road, and we get introduced to JD, the young Mr. Brad Pitt, in I think his first American role. He'd already done a film like in 1987, which won't be released for another 10 years. But there he is in his cowboy hat and his boots and his jeans, and Thelma's like immediately kind of infatuated by him. But Louise is very protective, which I really liked. Half the movie really feels like Louise is protecting Thelma, and in the other half it feels like Thelma has decided that she's going to protect Louise.
They definitely have like a mother-daughter relationship, but during the course of the film they definitely feel more like sisters than best friends as well. But I mean, Brad Pitt was excellent in this, though he almost didn't get the part.
Really?
He had to audition 3 times for the role.
Wow.
And even then the studio were like, nah, we don't really know. We've got this other guy, George Clooney, that we think we're going to cast him. Apparently they also auditioned Mark Ruffalo, William Baldwin, and a couple of others as well. But it was Geena Davis who when she was brought in to do a line reading with Brad Pitt, she walked out and she was like, yeah, hire the blonde one. Like she was a bit weak at the knees. But then again, like I think it's understandable.
Yeah, I mean,
Brad Pitt is just
it's fucking Brad Pitt. I mean, like I don't play for that team, but like it's Brad fucking Pitt, man.
It's Brad Pitt.
Like somebody sat there and went, George Clooney, Mark Ruffalo, or that motherfucker. Let's go with that motherfucker.
Unknown at the time, but pretty much this film helped launch his career. Absolutely.
Oh, totally. Yeah. He is really good and really articulate at the way that he delivers his character. But that's what makes me suspicious about his character right off the bat.
And as is Louise as well. Like the moment Louise sets eyes on him, she's like, "No, you're not getting in the car with us. No. Like you are trouble."
Yeah.
She susses him out immediately, and JD's like backs away. He's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I can't win this. Like you got me."
Yeah. And for me, that was when I actually started to notice that there was a lot of implication from the movie that men were bad. And the women, Thelma and Louise, they're the stars of the film, and so we need to obviously stick with their story and where they're going and things like that. But I was very surprised when they introduced the Michael Madsen character. Like the girls have been driving along and they happen to come across JD again, don't they? So they get him into the car, but Louise decides that she needs money, and so she's calling Michael Madsen, who's playing Jimmy. And were they in a relationship? Are they still in a relationship? Did something happen in the relationship? We don't know. We just know that you know, Jimmy and Louise feel something for each other, but Louise doesn't want to tell him anything that's going on because she's trying not to tell anybody, really.
She doesn't want to implicate him or drag him in as an accomplice or anything like that. But she is asking for assistance. Now, she has her own savings, but she just can't get to it easily. So she asks Jimmy to wire it and then transfer it.
Yeah.
So then he calls her, tells her where the pickup point is. And when she gets there and gives the password of Peaches, well, Jimmy's already there waiting for her.
Yeah, because he generally does love her.
He does, yeah.
He even has a ring at one point and wants to get married and, you know, shit like that. But it's like Louise, or Susan Sarandon playing Louise, she does like Jimmy and she kind of wishes things were different so that she could be with Jimmy. But as things are the way they are, which, like I said, this is what kind of put me on edge with the movie. It's like, this guy generally really likes you, and yet you can't tell him the truth. I understand why you don't want to tell him the truth, but why not take Jimmy with you? Have somebody there as stability. And I know that the film's leading up to this iconic moment, and so you can't have that. But you're building up Michael Madsen's character. He's a great actor. You know, this Jimmy, he's helping out. He loves her. She, you know, even when he does his little violent thing, outburst in the bed, in the motel room and smashes a bunch of shit up, she says to him, "I'm gone." And he calms down. So he will listen to her. And I, like it doesn't actually show you, but did they have sex or did they just spend the night with each other?
They just spent the night with each other. Now, in the script, there was a sex scene between Louise and Jimmy.
Yeah.
But Susan Sarandon said to Ridley Scott, she was just like, are you mad? Like, my character's just murdered someone. My character is still dealing with the thing that happened in Texas and the thing that's just recently happened.
Yeah.
Sex is not something that she's interested in at this point in time. So Ridley was like, now that you've mentioned it, you're absolutely right. We'll remove that. And what we'll do is we'll actually make up a scene, because I still need something to cut to between the other two actually getting it on in the room next door. So we do actually need some dialogue. And I think it was really soulful and heartfelt, and it really said more than just watching them grinding on a bed for a few minutes.
Well, that's what made me wonder if they'd had sex, because it does cut. The two of them are talking, they're getting close, and then it cuts to Geena Davis and JD. But when it cuts back, you know, Michael Madsen's character is asleep, and Susan Sarandon's character is looking out the window, and I couldn't tell if it was the look of a woman who just had meaningless sex. You know, she just lied there, or she was really contemplating, like, shall I go with him or shall I go on my own? What's my next step? Where am I going? You know, I got a lot from Susan Sarandon's acting there.
Oh yeah,
that she was, you know, contemplating existence or life. On the other hand, you know, like you said...
The diner the next morning, Thelma comes wandering in with her hair all over. She's disheveled and she's like, woo.
Well, that was it. I was going to go back because, you know, when Jimmy turned up, they'd had JD in the car. They picked him up and they were driving, and he was all in it with Thelma. And Jimmy's just like, go, you're gone. He knows. Louise knows. They both know that JD's a bad guy and you don't want him around. Now, the moment they are out, and Thelma's left on her own, Thelma is sat in the hotel room with like $6,000 of Louise's savings in an envelope on the nightstand. And knock, knock, knock at the door, there's JD. And I'm like, nah, I can smell a bad guy a mile away. There's no way this guy would look so good and be so nice if he was just fucking hitchhiking up and down the road. He is a robber. He is a thief. And he goes through his whole reenactment of what he does in front of Thelma. And so while he's doing that, I'm like, that money's gone. You might as well just fucking hand it to him now, because the moment your back's turned, he's taking that money. And so, like you said, the next morning after their sex sequences, which they did seem pretty hot and heavy, you know. If they had done anything, I don't know. But if I was Jeff Goldblum and I was watching those sequences, I'd be like, he's a really good actor.
What happened to your hair?
Nothing. Got messed up.
But yeah, I mean, we get to that morning restaurant, and that's when Louise is like, Thelma, where did you leave JD? And she's, oh, he's back in the bedroom with the money.
Yeah.
And they race in there, and it's gone. He's gone.
He's gone. Everything's gone. I liked her breakdown.
Yeah.
But then I don't know if it was enough for me. Like she'd probably broken down, but there was no blame. Like we're friends.
Yeah.
If we're sharing a room and you leave £6,000 on the side and you fuck off and then that money go missing, you gonna be pissed at me, right?
I won't be pissed, Iain. I'll just be disappointed.
He'd be pissed. And fucking Louise is sat there looking at Thelma going, oh, I'm really upset. I'm like, bitch, you lucky she don't shoot you.
Yeah, and they realise how bad things actually are, but they can't stop them now. They've got to get back on the road and keep going.
Yeah.
And that gives Thelma a little idea. As they pull over, she's like, I need to go get some stuff. And we leave Louise just sat in the car. She's looking around. She sees old Thelma and Louise looking out a window.
She does, doesn't she? Yeah.
And they're looking back at her. And then all of a sudden, get the car started. Go, drive. And we realise that Thelma has just robbed the convenience store, and we don't actually see it happen until we catch up with Harvey Keitel again, who is sat around with the rest of the police, and they're watching the playback, and we get to see her almost reenact entirely what JD had demonstrated to her in the motel the night before. And but then we also see that twist in Thelma where she's like, I think I've got a knack for this.
Yeah.
I think I could be a really good criminal.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, I thank you all for your cooperation. Now stay down on the floor till I'm gone. Have a good day.
Jesus Christ.
Good God.
My Lord.
I did love that little meme because each one of them says something, don't they? They're like,
Yes.
dear God, or Holy
Jesus.
Jesus. And, stuff. And it was a really comedy moment.
There are some great comedy moments, despite the fact that the film's quite bleak and like there's crime and rape and murder and they're on the run. There's still those little moments of levity, which just breaks up the pacing quite nicely.
The little run that Harvey Keitel does in the rain to get to the door before the other agent gets there. I'm like, what are you doing? You're just messing around now. But yeah, that's it. Geena Davis has just robbed the store. So, Harvey Keitel is talking to him on the phone at one point going, look, the killing we could have probably dealt with as an accident or something, but now you're just robbing stores and we need to arrest you now. People are like...
That was armed robbery.
Yeah.
Right?
And the girls are just like, they're giving, in a way, they're kind of given every outing. They're given every chance to hand themselves in, to do their side. Yeah, they're going to see a little bit of prison time, but with the situations they found themselves in, that was going to happen. But the two of them just like, nah, we're just going to keep going. We're
going to get to Mexico, and I don't know what they're going to do when they get there. That's the plan. They're in the middle of the situation. They're not thinking. They're just acting out and trying to get somewhere where they can... catch a moment to think about things thoroughly, but they're feeling things, not thinking things through.
Well, they kind of have a moment. I mean, when we have the night drive sequence and they're driving through the canyon, which is really beautiful sequence. I mean, you can't argue that Ridley Scott just has an eye for some really great visuals. He manages to capture really beautiful shots. And there's that moment where she pulls over and Thelma's asleep, and she does this kind of stand just staring out at the rocks.
Yeah.
Just...
Now, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about how Ridley Scott liked to collaborate with his actors, because all of that was Susan Sarandon's idea. She was just like, why don't we just have a quiet moment, no dialogue, where we just get to express our thoughts and feelings without saying anything, just by acting, and have this beautiful setup. And Ridley Scott was like, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Let me get back to you. And then Ridley Scott turned to the cast and crew and went, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to do this. And it took him 7 hours to set up that one shot that's in the movie.
Yeah.
Susan Sarandon's like, I shouldn't have come up with this idea. But, I mean, it's a beautiful moment in the film that she had the idea for. But yeah, she just wasn't quite prepared for the 7 hours it's going to take to light the desert and the mountain in the background as the sun was coming over the hill. So there were, long shoots, but they collaborated and they knew what they were working for to have those moments. So it was just a great impulse idea that's just turned into one of my favorite scenes in the film. So it is really great because they are contemplating what to do next. And it feels inevitable what's going to happen to them.
It does.
But it's still filled with moments of hope as well, and I think that's weaved into Hans Zimmer's score just as much as the sun coming out of the cloud at the that scene.
Yeah, you're constantly, or I was constantly sitting there going, man, I know how this ends, but I really just hope that they get out. Or, Harvey Keitel comes up with a loophole that, oh yeah, you're not going to jail for that because we understand that your husband was a bastard and, the other guy was a rapist. So you're getting off scot-free, But it's just like, that's never going to... It's when they get pulled over by the cop.
Right.
That was so fucking funny.
Maybe he doesn't know who we are yet. Okay.
He looks like a Nazi, and then Geena Davis comes up to the side of the car when he's questioning Louise, and she puts the gun to his face, and she's like, I don't really normally do this, but if you saw my husband, I'm like, bitch, your husband's got nothing to do with this. You're choosing all these decisions.
Now, I swear, 3 days ago, neither one of us would have ever pulled a stunt like this, but if you was ever to meet my husband, you'd understand why.
But they shoot the boot, they shoot the boot of the car.
No, she tells Thelma, she tells Louise to shoot the radio, and she does, and she's like, no, the police radio.
The police radio. It's like they're bumbling towards the end of the movie sometimes. I'm like, I always expected Thelma and Louise to be like Bonnie and Clyde, but no, it's more like Mr. Bean and fucking Mr. Magoo trying to get to the end. The guy's crying, isn't he? He's just like, I got kids. And they're like, just get in the car. Yeah. Okay, take his belt so that we've got extra bullets, and they drive off. And what makes the sequence even more funny, I was fucking dying with this sequence.
Is the stoner guy
cyclist. I'm like, nobody ever talks about the stoner cyclist from Thelma and Louise. Like, he rides up, and I'm like, why can't he hear the cop? Oh, he's got headphones in. Right. And so the cop starts screaming louder.
Your finger through the bullet holes, like, the keys are over there.
And the guy literally walks over, takes a big, massive toke of his joint, and just blows the smoke into the boot. You don't know if he actually lets the guy out or anything. No, it just cuts to something else.
That was great. Yeah, that's another favourite scene, actually.
I mean, Harvey Keitel, he's contacted the FBI. The FBI have got involved. They're doing all of their checks. They're doing phone wiretaps and all that kind of stuff. They've managed to get hold of Jimmy, who's pointed the direction towards JD. They've picked up JD. I thought that sequence between Harvey Keitel and Brad Pitt was really good, where he's questioning him. But I also felt like Harvey Keitel might have been pushing his I'm the older actor thing a little bit too much. Well, because I've never seen them act together since.
No, it's true, yeah.
And so, like, opportunities might not have come up. I understand that. I really wish I could see Harvey Keitel and Brad Pitt act again. But just the way that Harvey Keitel was kind of pushing him and grabbing him and things like that, just kind of being really rough with Brad Pitt's character.
It's because, Harvey's like really sympathetic to Thelma and Louise.
That is true, yeah.
He knows that he probably could have got them to turn themselves in because they'd only killed a rapist at that point in time. But because JD had stole their money, it's forced them to, take the law into their own hands, basically. And
that's true.
It's forced them to become criminals and go and rob the store, and which has led to the chain of events, which has made it worse for them.
Yeah.
So he's blaming everything on JD here.
Yeah.
And it comes through really well. And it endears me to, the Harvey Keitel character, because he is really sympathetic and he really cares for him, because nobody else seems to other than Jimmy. But, like, it just seems like the rest of the world's out to get Thelma and Louise. That's the kind of the way it's positioned.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt as well. It's like everything was just so against them, so they had to resort to extreme things to do. But between the Harvey Keitel character and the Michael Madsen character, these guys are legitimately trying to help.
Yeah. Now, when I was watching the film, I've seen this film like maybe 15 times.
Wow.
I absolutely love this film and treasure it. But on this viewing, where I was being a bit more critical for it, I was like, okay, yeah, so the film it's 2 hours, 10 minutes long. I was like, now, what if I was to cut this film back, like, what would I remove from it?
Yeah.
And alter the perspective and the storytelling as well. And I was like, how about we just take out all of the police stuff, or take out Harvey Keitel's character, take out all the police investigation, take out the phone tapping and wiring and investigation, take all that stuff out, and never leave Thelma and Louise from start to finish. Therefore we're not in the position of a sympathetic cop that understands and wants to help them, but we're just with them. We know that they've committed crime. They know it's like life in prison or death sentence at this point if they get caught. Yeah. So we feel the impetus to then drive and get to Mexico to get there with them. And then I was like, that's kind of like Vanishing Point
I was
in a
just
way.
about to fucking
And I was
say
just
that.
like, because that's like the brother of the sister film. Like these two are like great together.
Yeah.
But I was like, at the same time, it would take away, because I feel like we need to hang some of our emotions on the Harvey Keitel character, because
we do.
he is like one of the only good guys in the film, and he really does care, and he gets to act that.
Yeah.
And it really shows. So
Yeah.
I was like, I wouldn't change a thing.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, like I said, there's so many things in the movie points to, trying to do some harm to the girls, that's what causes them to do these extreme situations. But every now and again, we keep dropping back to the Harvey Keitel character, where he's like, look, I just need you to come in. I just want to talk to you. And he's constantly just trying to talk them down. He's trying to tell everybody around him that they're just trying to bring them down, and they're not. Ultimately, they come across this truck driver like 3 times, and he's a horrible piece of shit.
He's horrible.
He's just making rude gestures and offensive language towards them and stuff like that. And the first time they see it, they have a laugh. The second time they see it, they're a bit more annoyed. Third time they see it, they're like, all right, come on then. Let's pull you in, let's do these things. But at this point, they've got guns and they're taking no shit. So when the guy gets out of his truck and he comes over, they start questioning him. They put him on the spot. How would you feel if that was being said to your wife or your sister? And it makes him uncomfortable. And I suppose that's what, as a man, that's what you should kind of take away from this film. Not of how your actions may force somebody to do the extreme, but what you can do to avoid that. You don't have to say rude things to some girl that you don't even know, because that's somebody's sister, mother, daughter, whatever. Be a bit more respectful, because otherwise they might pull out a gun and blow your fucking truck up.
It's great. Ridley Scott said, right, I'm gonna rig the explosion. The girls don't know that the explosion's gonna go off while the camera's rolling.
Right.
And I'm gonna get a real natural reaction, like he did with Alien.
Oh yeah, nice.
And it did the explosion, and the 2 girls were just like, because they didn't expect it to blow up, so he didn't get a reaction at all. He was like, right, so I've set all this up, but it's failed. So I was like, you never hear of it failing. You always hear of the actual reaction.
Yeah.
Whereas the 2 of them they didn't even act at all.
That's it. They were just so casually laid back with their guns, like, well.
But yeah, it's a weird image. The guy on his knees, hands in the air, and the explosion in the background. I always forget. Yeah, that's Thelma Louise. I always forget that.
And this kind of gets to the point now where the cops, they've narrowed down the chase. They've managed to lock in on a phone number, and then obviously they've seen the massive, huge explosions. They know the girls are heading in a certain direction, and so there's that point where they're driving down. They see 3 police cars going the other way, and they're like, "Do you think that's for us?" And then all of a sudden, the cops just turn around, and it just becomes this massive, huge chase sequence. And I really did like that turn. That the movie had been kind of serious and dark and loving and emotional and funny and this, that, and next thing. And now, bang! It's just all fucking action.
All real. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd love myself a good car chase. So I really like the one in this one. It feels believable. It feels like this could actually happen. Yeah, and I don't know. I love watching cop cars go flying through the air. And thanks, Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers.
And they drive through this tiny little bridge section, don't they? We see the cop car attempt it as well and get stuck.
Yeah.
And they're driving away like, it's quiet.
Yeah.
I think we actually did it.
We
got away.
Yeah.
So you're kind of relieved for them.
I love that cliff shot.
Yeah.
They're driving along the side of the cliff, and there's a bit of a drop, and then you see the helicopter come from underneath. And you're like, oh shit, they're being properly
exactly, because then you see like the 15 police cars coming up behind them as well. They reverse around. They're like, we're trapped.
What is it they say? They're like, what is this? I think it's the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. They had no idea where they were.
No. It's just like, we can't go anywhere. This is a massive, huge drop. They turn around. They see all these police cars, all these armed police officers. I was very surprised that actually, there was a female police officer in there at one point, glasses on, calling them in. And I was just like, hey, fair use, and men and women all in the same job kind of thing. But these guys are armed with M16s.
Well, you got the guy. Is it the guy from Groundhog Day?
Yeah, it is. Ned fucking Peterson fucking Ned, the head, needle nose Ned,
That's it.
motherfucker. Yeah.
He's there and he's like, look, it's just normal procedure, right? We have all of this no matter who's in the car.
Yeah.
You know, it's just this normal procedure. And
Harvey
Harvey's just
tried-
like, no,
yeah.
you can't shoot them. Like, please don't, no.
Yeah.
And Thelma Louise just have that moment. They're just like, you know what? We can't go back. We don't
No.
want to go back. I don't even want to go back to my old life, even if I could have it, because I'm changed now forever.
Yeah.
And I'd rather just keep going because I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to get a death sentence. I don't want my normal life back either. So
I want to be with my friend forever, and if
Yeah.
that means we got to drive off a cliff and die together, then that's it.
And they do.
And what's really shocking for me is like people talk about this ending so much, but nobody ever brings up the fact that Harvey Keitel's Hal character chases after them.
Yeah.
He
his hand in the
desperately-
air, just trying to call them back.
to stop them because he knows that they're going off that edge and they're never coming back, and he wants to help them.
Yeah.
You know, he still firmly believes that they're kind of innocent in all of this, and it's just
Yeah,
been
he
one.
knows they're still getting jail time, but they'll be alive.
Yeah.
They could still have a life. Like, they don't have to be in this moment forever, which, you know, and it's really sad. Like, I mean, Hans Zimmer's score, it's foreshadowing this, like,
Yeah.
all the way up to this moment. But then when it gets here, it kind of eases off, lets the characters have this moment, and then once they hit the pedal to the metal and go,
Yeah.
and then that score comes right back in again. Like, you can't help but feel like you've just been shanked
Yeah.
with an emotional punch. It's and then the freeze frame, the Kodak freeze frame moment, it's beautiful. It really is.
Yeah.
And then the film goes and destroys itself.
Yeah.
By montaging all these happy moments, like, oh, smiles and laughter. I'm like, no, movie. Wait, I know you're cutting to credits, but I needed like a minute to deal with the visual of them going off the cliff to jump to this happy montage stuff. It took me back to being there.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, it's just, you took me out of that moment, which I was enjoying. I mean, it was sad, but I was enjoying the moment. And then it's the illusion of it all is immediately shattered. So I really didn't like that.
That's it. I didn't like this sequence at the end either because it just seemed of all the happy moments of Thelma and Louise, and yet, you know, I get that we were really happy and we were enjoying the trip and stuff like that, but it's as if you're trying to erase all of the bad things that got them to that drop-off point anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and yet that's what kind of made the Thelma and Louise characters the way they were. But at the start, they were just happy, homeowner, loving friends. By the end, they were anti-heroes. They were against the world. They hated all of the shit that was being kind of forced onto them. So they were kind of fighting back. And yet, once you get to the montage sequence, you kind of lose all that. You know, I would have rather the film had just frozen on that and then gone to black and then had the title
Yeah.
cards and just had
And
the
then the
music,
credits.
the
Yeah, the
music
music.
playing
Yeah.
over again. And that would have made me want to go back and watch the movie over again.
Yeah.
Watching this friendly montage sequence, it kind of hits me where I'm like, I don't want to kind of sit through it all again because
Yeah.
I was enjoying myself and then I've got
Yeah.
to sit through all the bad shit all over again. I don't want to sit through all the bad shit all over again.
Yeah. Now, that wasn't the original. Well, I mean, that was the original ending as scripted.
Yeah.
And when Susan Sarandon signed on, she was like, "I'm only signing on to this film right now, Ridley. If you can tell me to my face that you will not change the ending as it is written, we are going off that cliff at the end." And Ridley Scott was like, "Yeah, okay then." Yeah. Because the studio, when the film was finished, the studio went, "No.
Yeah,
We're not
I figured
having
they
that. We're not having this downbeat ending. Get in there and change it." So Ridley turned to the studio and went, "And do what?" And the studio went, actually, we got nothing. So it stays as is.
You know what?
Now, Ridley Scott did also he had the idea at one point that Louise, as the car was getting caught towards the cliff, would push Thelma out of the car and go off on her own. And I was like,
nah.
I understand why Louise would do that for Thelma, because Louise was the one that shot the rapist, was the one that took them on the run, and Thelma was kind of, you know, the wingman for a while until she
Yeah.
ended up doing some crime herself. But
Yeah.
like she was, if anything, she wasn't as smart as Louise.
No, she
was
wasn't.
more innocent and
Yeah. Naive.
and
Definitely
naive,
naive,
exactly.
yeah.
And so maybe saving her. But I was like, but that takes away that friend when they hold hands, that bond of friendship and
Yeah.
the freedom that they've both experienced taking that away to throw Thelma out the door. I was like, geez, that would be comical and just a disaster of an
Yeah.
ending. So I was glad that's not there as well. Now, there is also a deleted alternate ending sequence.
Okay.
Now, when the car goes off the cliff, it sort of just about reaches the horizon, and that's when the freeze frame happens. There is an extended version where the car goes down a little bit deeper, but there is also an entirely shot ending where the car goes off the cliff and we stay with it until the car flips upside down and disappears behind the rocks. And we follow Harvey run all the way up to the cliffside, looking down, can't see the car as the helicopter swoops in to try to find the wreckage. And the music just keeps playing. Like, the music is just doing all that heavy lifting as well. But I was like, you know what? I'm happy with the cut.
Yeah.
Or the freeze frame as the car gets so far down, because there's no surviving this.
No,
matter what.
You're driving into the Grand Canyon.
Exactly. But also what I do like about the deleted ending is that after all of that, there is the shot from the very beginning of that mountain,
Right.
and Thelma and Louise driving through most of the credits towards the mountain down that one singular road. I'm like, yeah, they're in heaven together, still driving towards the pearly gates or something. I was like, I kind of like that, but more than the bloody montage at the end. So yeah, I can understand why it was difficult, because it's freaking iconic, this ending. So as is, I'm happy with. I just don't like the montage.
I kind of would have gone for a shootout.
Yeah, what were your favorite scenes?
I had a few favorite sequences. I mean, you know, the iconic Polaroid shot at the beginning with the two of them, you know, just kind of hugging, going on the trip. I mean, it's just beautiful. That just one, you could just freeze frame that one shot and be like, bang, that's fucking Thelma and Louise.
Hell yeah.
Oh, always right there. You know, I did like Shooter McGavin, Christopher McDonald. He is a fun actor. I mean, he's more better in his comedies. But and maybe that's what put me off of his character in this, is that I was expecting more comedy from him. So when he was trying to be the serious husband at the beginning, I didn't really get it, because he just sounded like a goofball, you know. And then when she rings him and he's like, hi, and she hangs up, that was just funny. But the last sequence you had where, you know, he's listening to the radio about them being armed and dangerous in the police, he's staring. And it's a stare, I was saying to Gary, like a concerned partner, a concerned husband. He wants his wife to come home. Like, maybe that point, he's like, I do really love you, and I'm really sorry for all the crap that I put you through. We don't know what crap it was, but whatever it was would make him question doing it ever again.
You don't know what you have until it's gone, right?
Exactly. Brad Pitt. He is a compulsive robber, and him standing there with the hairdryer talking to Thelma throughout the sequence about how he does his robbery. He's fucking great. He is great. And it's funny to watch him in this and to know that he is literally just gonna hit movie after movie after movie, which he's just gonna be phenomenal in. But in this, in his cowboy hat, him fucking Geena Davis, you lucky bastard. Like I didn't think those sequences were going to go as far as they did, but they did. So kudos to Geena Davis.
Then I just slip on out.
Thelma walking in the diner the next morning, like, what's wrong with your hair? What's wrong with it? I'm all over the place. You know, that's a look of a woman who hit the big O that night, you know, maybe 3 or 4 times. Her going in and robbing the store. I mean, it's just so funny just watching Geena Davis, Thelma, on the surveillance camera, going through all the talk, getting everybody down on the floor, going through exactly what JD said, you know, forcing people. And then the cop stuff after. That was another comedy moment. Each one of them had one thing to say, 3 in a row, and it's comedy. Why should it be funny? It's supposed to be really serious, but then the men are kind of goofballs. The driving at night in the desert, it was just beautiful. You're in the middle of I was watching this desert sequence, and I'm just like, they're in the desert, miles from anybody, and yet somewhere there's all these police rushing around trying to arrest them and get to them. But here they are in the middle of the desert, quiet night, contemplating what they're going to do with their existence. It was ace. The stoner cyclist. I mean, Jesus, it was funny as fuck. You never know what happens to the cop. He literally just blows the smoke into the fucking hole.
Some say he's still in there. high as fuck.
Like, little finger. And then the iconic cliff drop. I just love the way, like I said, that helicopter shot coming along the bottom of the canyon, coming up in front of them, knowing full well that there was no escape. Like I said, I really loved the fact that Harvey Keitel's character was there to try to stop them, and then just going off the cliff. Brilliant ending.
Yeah, I'm going to struggle to think of any extra scenes because you mentioned all the ones I've got listed.
Oh, yeah.
If I pull one scene, I really like the scenes with Louise and Jimmy. I
Yes.
thought the performance there and the fact that because we see Michael Madsen and we're like, here we go, here comes trouble.
Yeah, like he gonna kill somebody.
And the fact that he's playing against type, kind of like Harvey as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I just picture them in like, Reservoir Dogs, and so seeing them here, it's just like a complete reversal. But I thought that the scene together, where it wasn't a sex scene, but it was just dialogue,
Yeah.
I really, really liked that. I love the scene where the police are talking to Daryl, and they're like, look, when she calls, just be nice and just be like, ask her how she is and what her day's been like, because women love that
shit.
Like you really miss her. Women love that shit.
Women love that shit.
The silly comedy moments like that, but it does add some levity, which was needed.
You know what I did think was crazy? I really wish they'd had it. I wanted Harvey Keitel and Michael Madsen to have a sequence, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And yet, a year later, Reservoir Dogs.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, the guy blowing the smoke into the bullet holes in the cop car, the shooting the radio please moment, Thelma calling Daryl and then hanging up immediately was great. But yeah, I love the final sequence as well. Just sat there, just like, I can't go back. The journey together, it was just really epic stuff here in that finale. The whole chase sequence up to the canyon and then going over, it was just so memorable. It's iconic and it's masterfully done.
Yeah.
Ian, you recommend Thelma and Louise?
I do recommend Thelma and Louise, though I did say to Gary that I do think that it might be a little bit dated now, and mainly because a lot of the things are very 90s. The movie's 1991, so of course it's going to be, but it's an aspect of that time. Like I said, if the script had been made into a movie in 1979, we'd be talking about completely different things of that time period that, these two women would have had to have gone through. In the 90s, they had a little bit more leeway, but it was just enough as well to say, look, this is what's going to happen if you push them over the fucking edge, literally. It's got some stellar acting. It's got some stellar visuals. It's got some stellar moments. It's got, Brad Pitt in his first real iconic role, Michael Madsen and Harvey Keitel playing against roles that they were used to. Geena Davis and Susan Sarandon are just whoa. I'm not going to go into what I'm thinking about that, but it's the point that we've said it a million times. If you even consider thinking that you like cinema, you have to have seen Thelma and Louise. Now, even if you don't enjoy it after 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it can seem really fucking long, 2 hours and 10 minutes. Even if you don't enjoy it, you have seen it. And the fact that you've seen it means the movie is still iconic.
Oh, I'm easily recommending Thelma and Louise. This is a must-watch film recommendation from me. It's a fantastic, epic drama about the journey these two characters face while on the road, on the run. Susan Sarandon and Geena Davis were both equally amazing, presenting fully fleshed out characters who equally shared great chemistry. They were outstanding and very entertaining to watch. Ridley Scott always delivers when it comes to how good the film looks, and working with Adrian Biddle as the cinematographer, the guy who shot Aliens and The Mummy, the imagery and shot compositions are sublime, and the film offers plenty of time to ease off the gas and just let subtle and reflective moments happen before something horrible gets in the way again. The film has a great pace for an over 2 hour runtime. It's got a good story with leads that we grow to love and feel sympathetic for, and as changed as they are, before the last mile. And it's bittersweet. It's epic and damn good cinema. So yeah, this is a must-watch. Great action scenes, good drama, awesome road trip film that deserves to be seen, and it's still great today. It's one of the best female buddy road trip films ever made. It's iconic and damn great. Somebody said get a life, and so they did. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.